Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have inspired my network, colleagues, new colleagues, friends, great leads that have great insight on books that have changed their life, made an impact on their life, their leadership, whatever it may be, whatever those values are that they carry from one world to the other. And in this series, I cover three types of books, three categories. The first, where the guest is sharing with me a book that I haven't read at all. The second category, where we're discussing a book that we've both read, whether specifically for the episode or we've read it in our previous lives. And then the third is when I'm lucky enough to have an author covering their book, author and or publisher. So that's the case with this particular episode. My guest today is Moshe Goldstein. And Moshe is a high school teacher and has studied computer science, mathematics, cybersecurity, patent prosecution, and Talmudic law. He also is a community service volunteer with Kids of Courage, or KOC, and is an emergency medical technician. So he's always seeking to help others while expanding his own knowledge. Moshe recognized the lack of advice for young people getting their footing in the real world, making it his goal to encourage the next generation to forge their own path, which is right up my alley. We were just talking about that before. Drawing on his own experience, his debut book, Starter Mindset, sets out to inspire people to get started and find their passion. Instead of settling for good enough, Moshe strives to draw out the very best in himself and those around him. And I met Moshe through networking, and we had a conversation about his book and found it valuable. He saw what I was doing. I've seen what he's doing. So I'm looking forward to this conversation because of that urgency of the message that he has about the younger generations really getting started as soon as they can and making an impact on the world and not waiting longer into their career, into their life to make that kind of change. So Moshe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, John, for having me on your show. I'm excited to be here and talk to you about this.
Moshe, the way that I start the episodes off is I want to learn about the work that you're doing today. Obviously, I read your bio, but could you get a little more into the detail of what you're doing in the day to day? I've read a lot of in your bio about the different areas that you're working in. So what does your day to day look like?
So today, at the moment, I'm just a high school teacher. I teach 4 classes, 60 students, biology, 9th grade biology. That is my full-time job, and that is what I do day to day. I graduated, however, in December with a background with a degree in computer science, mathematics, cybersecurity. I've also taken physics. I play piano during the day as a hobby, which lends me to have been around many different arts and subjects and fields and different kinds of people and talents. And then so that's kind of my background of education. And I just like to share with other people, students, and other people alike from my background, what to try to get them moving in a path for them to succeed.
So Moshe, when it comes to you, to understand who you are today, the work that you're doing today, can you tell me a little bit about how you started off your career, whether when you were younger it was education for yourself or if it was college or family, chance meeting? What was it that put you on a path to work towards your career? Maybe not this point, because we never know exactly how we're going to get to where we are now, or our future state, our career and whatnot. You may not have known you were going to end up right where you are now, but back then when you were going into your career, starting off, what was it that looked like? What were you pursuing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I liked what you said, John, just a minute ago, that you never knew where you were going to end up. Like, that is exactly how I would describe myself. Like, growing up, I was kind of optimistic as to where I would end up. I never really found my kind of niche, like where I kind of fit into things. I am a lot more out of the box, I feel like, than other people, because I think I tend to think about myself, thinking about things differently than traditional senses. So, like, for example, if had you told me 15 years ago that I would go into something technical, I don't think I would have believed you. If you would have told me I would have done a math degree, I would have said that's way, I'm like, math isn't even on my radar of, like, numbers are great, but I can't be sitting and crunching numbers all day. And then the physics and all of that, like, had you told me, I don't think I would have, believed it. But, when I kind of explored and experimented with different things in different fields, and that got me on the path of technical skills. And once I started building up my confidence and learning that I'm actually pretty good at this stuff and learning more about the subject, I was able to continue to do it at a very high level, which is important to do when anyone's succeeding. But I thought I honestly thought that I would probably go into business, probably into like finance, um, or something like that.
What did you go to university?
I did.
What did
I
you go
went to
to?
Towson University, which is a university in Maryland.
Okay. What did you study?
So I just studied computer science, mathematics, and cybersecurity. I also took a bunch of physics, and I also took some piano classes there too.
Okay. And here's the thing, because I thought that was over like the course of the career and not just like the education portion. But so when you say that you didn't think that you would end up in mathematics, but obviously mathematics, the technical of the physics world, when was it that you decided to start studying that? What was it that happened that made you realize that you had a knack for that kind of work, for that kind of thinking?
Well, I started with computer science. Computer science is related to almost every field, and most similar to computer science is the mathematics behind the algorithm. So that got me leading into wanting to explore deeper programming. But what got me into pursuing it is that I was getting very good grades, and I was excelling much faster than I had thought than I was going to. So that kind of just gave me the confidence of just saying, well, let me just keep going until I can see myself doing pretty well in this.
What are the various degrees that you have, Moshe?
So my degrees in computer science, mathematics, and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a sub-track in the computer science degree, and I also have a degree in Talmudic law.
Okay, okay. And so then after your education, what did you do after your education?
So I was actually a high school biology teacher while I was in college. I've been teaching now for 2 years, and ever since I graduated, I've just been teaching biology. And I also took what's called the patent bar, which is a test to do patent prosecution with the Patent Trademark Office. And then from there, I am exploring what my next steps are going to look like, building off of these past things I have had. And I've also written my book, Starter Mindset, uh, and I've been speaking about that and doing book signings and marketing that as well. So that's a little bit more of what I've been doing since I've been graduating. But primarily, definitely just been a biology teacher.
So we just talked about how your track when you start that path may not look like what you're thinking going to look like. You leave one point when you're younger and then you look back 30 years later. I mean, you're not as old as I am, but you look back, you're like, okay, this is not where I thought I'd be. Life kind of zigzagged, my interests changed. But now that you are at this point, does it make sense given the way you grew up that this is the kind of work that you're doing? Is there something about it that does make sense? Even though you kind of took that turn towards the mathematics, does it make sense at all?
Um, it's funny because like my family is not mathematical. We're not so academic. Like we're more. My dad is a PA, and my brothers are doing medical fields, and I've always been growing up in the medical field. So mathematics is very, very distant from what I've been growing up to do. Even growing up, I never really focused so much on the academics part of that part. But the one area that definitely is true is that my family has always been very, very giving as to community purposes. And so even as I am in college, in university, I'm looking at algorithms. I'm not just looking at the algorithm itself, but I'm saying, well, how can this benefit a community? How can this help my neighbors? How can this change people's lives? How can I put this into a more open space? And so even when I wrote Starter Mindset, I had that in mind, that I want people to read this book to instill in them that passion of taking something that they have and developing into their own, and creating something for themselves, as I felt that people aren't doing that enough today as perhaps they did a while back. They don't have as much know-how in terms of taking steps. So definitely being a very community-oriented, coming from a very community-oriented home is probably the biggest shape of what helps me to guide my steps, when I do things. Um,
Moshe, what does leadership mean to you?
to me, leadership means um, having the experience of knowing what to do, and then putting other people into the position to succeed in that area, so that as a whole, it accelerates much faster, and with better results. So, for example, when I was in doing projects in university, or even doing projects even in school, when I'm a leader of a team, my first question is, what can I do? It's really is, how can I put everyone into their best position to succeed, so that I don't have to do much, and I could give them confidence to almost. I could give them confidence that they themselves become the leaders. They take ownership of the project, and now, from my point of view, everything's just kind of running automatically. So, to me, a leader also instills in them that confidence to be able to take it upon themselves to succeed.
I love that. Thank you. Now, Moshe, we can jump into your book. Can you introduce it? Again, everybody that may listen to this, watch this series, knows that I'm very curious and fascinated by what we teach our younger generation in terms of getting them the tools to move forward in life, to take care of themselves. That sounds ridiculous, to take care of themselves. I think the traditional thinking of education kind of lets them down. It's important to a certain point. But I just, when you reached out about talking about your book on the series, I was fascinated just because of that. I love that preparation. But yeah, if you could just introduce your book and just how it came to be that you decided to write it.
Sure. Well, my book is called Starter Mindset. Here it is in my hand. The cover of Starter Mindset is a shattered light bulb. It's kind of breaking conventions. It's kind of releasing those ideas that people have. Everyone has an idea of something, a passion of what they want to do, right? If you ever go walk around along the road, anyone you bump into, you say, "What do you have an idea?" They have not just one idea or two ideas or three ideas, many ideas of what they want to do, what they wanted their career to look like, what they had envisioned things to be. And if you ever ask those people as well, even with problem solving, how would you fix, for example, climate change? How do you face fix various economic situations or political situations, or whatever is going on, or health problems, as we just came out of coming out of the pandemic. You have all of these great ideas, and then you wonder, those are great ideas. Why aren't those ideas being pushed into play? Why aren't people taking action steps? And that really bothered me. It bothered me when I was in university and I was taking computer science and mathematics and cybersecurity and physics, and I was doing art and piano, and I was all around the university, meeting all kinds of different people from all different areas of life with so much talent and passion. And I'm asking myself, why aren't these people doing more? Like, what is holding them back? They have that idea, they have the talents, they seemingly are capable. Why aren't they doing it? And so I felt like this would be an amazing book to show people that with the right steps and the right um, motivations that they can take any idea really and turn it into something that is worthwhile.
So how is the book structured, Moshe? How does what's the overview of the book? What is the path journey that you take the reader on? What can they expect in the book? Just kind of an overview.
So the book has three parts. The first part is like an introduction to get people into that starter mindset, the mindset of where entrepreneurship begins with them, where what are pitfalls that people often think about starting younger, starting with less experience, which they may perceive them to have, getting them into that idea that everyone kind of started younger with lack of experience and not necessarily knowing where they would go and how the roads would lead. And then the second part of the book is interviews of 14 young entrepreneurs under the ages of 25 from all backgrounds, all industries, all walks of life, showing that they have succeeded. If you wanted to do something in fashion, if you wanted to do something in cancer research, if you wanted to do something um, with gaming or other or empowerment or other kinds of or activism, that there are people literally under the age of 25 with not much more experience than other people, and they are doing extraordinary things. And then the last part of the book is kind of like that conclusion. It wraps it up and shows from people who have succeeded in Silicon Valley. I have a particular interview there who's been around startups since the 1980s. He's a technology executive, and shows that these are validating steps that really anyone can succeed if they have the right mindset and they do take those steps.
So how much of that do you think falls into education? How much of that falls into the way that they're raised by their families? Is it a community thing? What do you envision that to look like? A society, a world where people aren't just going through the motions of education, but if they do have these ideas, that they act on them, especially when they're that young. What do you think it's going to take? What do you envision that world to look like? That preparation to kind of infuse that mindset into their growth and development.
I think that showing them that there are people taking those steps in similar paths or walks or areas of life or situations of life that they are dealing with, who have turned those situations or have turned those areas into success, which can give confidence to them that those ideas are valuable ideas and those can be turned into something.
Now, do they? You mentioned passion before, or I mentioned it in your bio. Um, I'm just curious, like what that because there are so many people. I can imagine there are so many people out there with ideas, like you said, right? I mean, even something as dumb as if we're watching Shark Tank and somebody comes out with an invention that they want to, pitch to the sharks to get their funding. And so many of us have said, why didn't I, I've thought about that. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I create that? I should have invented it. It should be me up there. Um, yeah, it's amazing what can happen if we just instill that right mindset in younger people. And I'm just thinking of like all the different avenues that we have. That it's not just education, it's not just the workplace, it's not just home. But I mean, I don't know how much younger you are than I am, but um, I think this day and age with the access that we have, the instant access, the way that I'm talking to you, courses and certifications, everything that we have online, it's not something that existed when I was going to school. So I always envisioned what my education would have been like if I had access to all that, or if I had taken interest in something and was able to look it up, all the information that I would need or want on a particular topic. I'm trying to envision what that looks like. Um, have you, when you talk about speaking, is that to corporations? Is it to I don't know if when I say corporations, I mean maybe as they bring on interns, kind of infusing that mindset. I don't know if it's educational institutions. Where is it that you might do your speaking?
I speak mostly at youth groups, clubs, try to get them instilled with that mindset.
Do you have a particular, and this is just my curiosity. I'm always just curious and go down on these tangents, but is there a workshop that you've put together instead of going to them where they can come to you for the resources, or anything you've developed to kind of put out there?
I have developed a few things at the moment, but I haven't done it. I haven't released it yet. I'm still working on putting those things together. I've created not just the book Starter Mindset, but I've also created like a workbook where people can kind of put their ideas down in an organized fashion and put down the steps that they think that they need to start getting the ball rolling a little bit, and then to try to get them on that path. So um, I do have something, but I need to. It should release soon.
Not to have you, not like picking a favorite or anything, but is there an example that you can give us from the book, just to kind of
Yes,
whet the reader's appetite, just to get a sense for what it is they could expect in the various examples that you give?
of course. This is a really, uh, I kind of when I think about you know, entrepreneurship and young people, or people with inexperience, the things that they can achieve. There's there's really two balances I kind of find in my book. The one area is when you have that burning passion that you've always liked doing, that hobby, and you can turn it into a career. Now, that hobby doesn't necessarily mean something like, something that is like clear that that would turn into something successful. Yet you kind of persisted, and as crazy as it sounds, that turns into someone's career because they've loved it so much that they turned it into a passion. One story of that I can share with the book is that of Lily Hevesh, who's a very famous YouTuber, and she is famous for her domino art. And you can imagine what it would be like, to create a career out of of making domino arts. And it's an amazing that by taking the passion, your hobby, and kind of turning into that she's able to do that. Um, but there was one particular story I thought I would share in the book, which I think is very interesting, powerful, because it shows that what people can do with their ideas, not just turn their hobbies into careers, but also how it can affect everyone uh, even better. And that is of Michael Ogensanya, and he's an entrepreneur out of Maryland, and he was doing an internship at a company, and during that internship, he faced a little bit of workplace discrimination, and it hurt him so much that he decided to create a whole company to solve that problem called Mindstand. And the way and the idea of the company is to censor workplace speech so that people can feel more comfortable and included in a workplace. And so it shows the power that people can the power and the amazing things people can do when they do take those ideas, no matter how different, or some people say crazy they are, that they can actually work.
And that reminds me of when you said something a couple minutes ago, when you said that your thinking isn't traditional, you don't quite think the way other people do. What did you mean by that? Was it always like that when you were younger?
I do think so. I just think that I if I've just always had experiences in life where, if someone were to ask a question, my answer would be very different than what was being answered. if you ask 5 people for the answer, I might want to be just completely off.
Why do you
Different.
think that
So
is?
I think that's just the way I was born.
Yeah.
I don't.
Not like curiosity or just so not so much just an innate, not solely questioning the world or going against the grain, just something that was part of you.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Uh, Now in writing the book, how did you what did you typically authors go in knowing the hypotheses that they want to kind of formulate, that they want to prove, or the examples that they want to give. What did you take away from writing this? You go into it with one idea. Did you learn anything from the people aside from the details of their lives and their work? Anything that shifted your perspective or changed it at all from the beginning of the book to when you finished writing it?
Well, something that's really nice is to hear that people are so giving of their time and their ideas, and that even when they are succeeding, they still want to see other people also succeed, which is a very cool thing. And so many people who I've interviewed in the book who are running tech startups, 23 years old, like big companies, and developing these products. And I'd ask them, why did you want to do this interview? Why did you want to be a part of this book? They told me it's because they want to inspire the next generation. They want to see that more women are breaking into the tech field, and they want to see there's more workplace inclusion. They want to see that there's more people having the courage to pursue a career in domino art. How many people are doing that? It's just amazing to me how like people, even as they're going along success, they're saying, "Well, I want to be the light to show everyone else how they can also do it." So that was a very positive thing for me to learn from writing the book.
So it kind of reinforced things for you that aside from what the person can achieve for themselves, there's a ripple effect to that, to their just being able to share their knowledge. That's got to be heartening. That's got to be powerful just to kind of go in there with almost like the belief you're going to be profiling people and sharing their lessons, but then learning that they want to create that ripple effect.
Yes, they want to create a community of people taking their passions and changing the world because again, people have that capability. And then they want to see people to be inspired by what they're doing to follow their and following their paths.
Yeah. And I mean, just that creates such any community in which they operate just benefits so much from that. Um, it's interesting, fascinating, sometimes sad. That's a crazy combination, I know, but just in coaching leaders, talking to people, listening to people, it's amazing how much they do have ideas, they do have passions, they do have or concerns about the world or their environment, their community, and yet they guard themselves. They don't want to bring it forward. Not necessarily maybe because there isn't an avenue, but it's amazing how much we don't want to share, not all of us, but how much the default can be not wanting to share out of fear, whatever that fear may be, that it won't work out, that somebody might negate it or not believe it or not want to see it or not appreciate it. But it's amazing how much people have to offer. And it's not this highly specialized education or specialty, but just kind of the everyday things like the domino art. You know what I mean? That can start in somebody's bedroom as a kid and they just become obsessed and enthralled with it. And then they just dive into it. And maybe decades ago, people would never have known about it, would never have read about it. But now everybody has that instantaneous reach. It's almost like you want to tell somebody who doesn't believe that their passion, whatever they're all about, what their heart is in, there is somebody out there that needs to see what you're doing, and they may not know they need to see it, but once they see it, it opens up their eyes. So I love the work that you did, just kind of bringing that out of them. Who knows what they thought before you interviewed them, but now they understand the power of their stories. And I mean, you said they're all under 25 years old, right?
Everyone under 25, the youngest was 16 years old.
What was the
16.
the 16-year-old? What was their work or what was their craft, if you will?
So her name was Ria Karamanchi, and she, at 16 years old, which would put her in 9th or 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
She started a company called SmartCane, using AI technology to put onto a cane so that people who are visually impaired can better navigate and be able to navigate the world better. Called SmartCane.
Now, just I guess one more question about your I guess craftspeople, your entrepreneurs in this book. Um, what kind of stories did you hear about how they were influenced, how they were told or guided to bring their ideas to light? I can imagine all the stories are different, but what did that look like? Did they have support? Did they have somebody guiding them? Did they fight for it? What was it that they did, or how they got their story out there, or their craft, their work?
So that's one of my favorite parts about the book. When you ask how did they get their work out, and it was everyone did it their own unique way. Some people failed and failed and failed and failed and pitched and pitched and pitched to this venture capitalist and this investor and that investor, and they just kept failing until eventually they succeeded. Others entered into competitions. Others entered into famous TV shows. Others had life changing experiences or very life traumatic experiences which influenced their need to succeed. Others just had a love for what they were doing and the create and the skills to be able to put things together. It's like almost like there was no one formula, which is really proves the point that there's no one way of doing things. That if someone has an idea, yes, they might be doing it differently than some. They might be taking steps that are different than other people who have done things, but that doesn't mean they're wrong steps, um, which is encouraging for anyone who wants to start something.
Did any of them did any of them share with you that they had reached a point where they were thinking about giving up? You don't have to name names or anything like that, but I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm just curious. That's why I'm looking forward to reading your book, because I'm just curious. I'm always curious about the resilience in somebody's story, because we see things that play out in the everyday success stories, stories like the ones in your book, and then we don't think about the work that goes into it. We don't think about the rejection that goes into it. We don't think about the grit that goes into it. So I'm always curious if it's almost like I'm more curious about the adversity they faced, in bringing their skill to the forefront. Did anybody say that they got to a point where they thought they were close on giving up?
I don't not that I can recall.
Yeah, no, but that's amazing. How did you go about finding the people that you were profiling?
Um, I spent a long time just researching for people who kind of fit the criteria of being young, under the ages of 25 for current today, but are also easily accessible for people to access their stories as well online. So I needed to make sure that they were highly successful people and they've won awards and stuff like that. So I kind of looked for people who fit that criteria and then would reach out to them and see if they would be interested in being a part of this.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what do you think, and I always rush the authors that come out here into the next thing, but what do you where do you see yourself going in terms of your writing? What is it that you might want to capture in a subsequent book?
In a subsequent book, I would like to capture. Well, I might would like to do a sequel to this Starter Mindset, kind of catch up with the interviews in the book and learn about what has come about since then. What are adversities that have come up? Have things changed? What are things that they've learned from the time of the book to from before? And try to get more stories and more content for people to learn from them, which which were not access, which we didn't have before.
Awesome. So before we wrap up, Moshe, is there anything that you want to share about the work you're doing? Obviously, I'll share anything, your social media or website, that kind of information. But if there's anything that you want to share, please go right ahead.
Sure. You could find me on my website, startermindset.com. You could feel free to reach out to me. Um, you can find my book on Amazon, and feel free to reach out because I like to hear from people and I like to get more people motivated to doing amazing things. Yeah. There was yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, there was something interesting you said earlier about failure, and that's I wrote about that in my introduction about how people they're the top 3 reasons people really don't follow through on their career dreams is failure and how they perceive a failure. Their fear of failure, their fear of being judged by failure, and they see failure as a reason as not a lesson to continue. And so I found that interesting about what you said earlier about how that does really prevent people from putting their ideas into the world. But once you read this book and you see that there are people who exactly at the same starting point as where you are, doing things that you thought that you couldn't do, but they're doing, it kind of shows you that that failure is really can be successful. So
Yeah, failure has come up a lot on this series, because I think it is one of those things that's just always on your shoulder for most people. There always is that concern. Um, I think it stems from just education and just, you know, worried about not getting the grade, not advancing with your class. I think that's where we get that fear, and it's just and I love the way that you bring up passion, that passion is important because I think passion, if you're strongly passionate about something to the point where you can offset that fear. You know, I love doing something so much that it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. That it's the passion that I put into the work, it's the time that I spend in it, it's what the end result is that I take joy out of it, that I take my joy from it. I'll give myself as an example. Even this podcast, this was just like a passion project. Wanted to just invite some of my network to talk about books that have inspired them. Got great authors on, such as yourself. But I mean, I've never been one. I've always been a shy kid. Was never confident. This triad of quiet, I call it, like lack of confidence, shy, and an introvert. So I wondered what this would be like. Uh, and obviously some imposter syndrome can sneak in there. Like what right do I think I have putting my face out there with authors and with my friends talking about books and whatnot. But and this is just again, this was a passion project, almost like a hobby. But at the same time, for me, it's like this is something that I believe there's value in. If I don't do it, I'm gonna regret it. So there's that passion enough to be like, okay, this isn't about other people. This isn't about a fear of what other people might think. If you're providing value, if you're creating something that you think is beautiful, that you think is great, that can provide value to other people, to me, there's no argument about against that. There's no argument against it to put something out there that you believe is that valuable. And I don't think a lot of people, I mean, for me, I can't speak that I got it all together, early enough. I started this when I was like 43 years old. At 43 years old, that's when I kind of, felt confident enough to put something out there like this, where a couple years ago, I probably wouldn't have done it. But I just got to the point where it's like, in life, I mean, your passion is your fire. And it sounds hokey and it sounds cliche, but if there's something that really wakes you up, something that you really find important, something that you draw joy out of, what's the argument against that? So I can, although I'm not as successful as the craftspeople, I call them craftspeople, but the entrepreneurs that you've profiled, fear is real. It's amazing how we're not indoctrinated on paper, but how we're programmed for it from a young age. But I believe the way you said, if you have that passion, it doesn't matter what the outside world says. you feel like you have something to give. And if you don't, at the end of your life or later in life, or maybe next year, you'll regret it.
Yeah, that's very well said.
I mean, just my 2 cents, but I hope people take that lesson away from our conversation, especially learning from your entrepreneurs. Is just, if you have something that you want to share, put yourself in the right community, put yourself in the right tribe, in the right circles, to have people like you and me just say, put it out there. And if people have feedback on it, obviously feedback is welcome if it comes from a good place. So, Moshe, thank you so much for sharing that kind of message with me today.
Thank you, John, for having me on the show. It's been really nice to share with everyone my work, Starter Mindset, and I hope you do get the opportunity to read it. And I hope it instills in you the same passion that it has been instilling in other people as well. So thank you again.
Yeah, and I guarantee even myself, close to twice their ages, right? The average of their ages, I'll probably find more inspiration and do more in my life because of reading those particular stories. So I love that your book does create that ripple effect of inspiration. So thank you again for that specific piece.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, Masha, thank you so much. And if there's anything that I might have missed, there's so much to cover. I always have so many questions, but if there's anything that I might have missed that you would want me to ask Moshe, please let me know. I'll reach out to him. I know he'd be so kind to just kind of share any kind of piece of value from his message, from his book, Starter Mindset. I really am excited for something like this. I think younger people do need to see the capabilities that they have in them, that society, that education doesn't necessarily highlight. So I think it's an important book. But anyway, that's just me speaking about that. Thank you for everyone for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.